The late September sun hung low over the Wind River Mountains, painting the Wyoming sky in shades of copper and gold. At the Redemption Creek train station, the platform stood empty, save for one solitary figure clutching a worn carpet bag in one hand and cradling a 3-month-old infant against her chest with the other. Eleanor Harper had been waiting for 2 hours. The letter had been clear. Jacob Hayes would meet her at 3 o'clock sharp. She glanced at the station clock again. 5:30. The train had long since departed, its whistle fading into the vast emptiness of the Wyoming territory. He wasn't coming. The realization settled over her like the approaching darkness. Cold, final, inescapable. She had no money for a return ticket to Philadelphia. 35 cents remained in her purse, not enough for a meal, certainly not enough for lodging. Her sister Martha had made it abundantly clear that Eleanor and her illegitimate child were no longer welcome under her roof. The words still stung like fresh wounds. Burden, shameful, disgrace. Baby Lily Rose began to cry in earnest now, her small voice piercing the silence. The sound cut through Eleanor like broken glass. Her daughter was hungry. Eleanor's breasts ached with milk, but they needed privacy, warmth, shelter. Things she could not provide standing on this windswept platform as darkness gathered. Eleanor rocked gently, her voice barely a whisper. "Shh, sweet girl. We'll figure something out. We always do." But even as she spoke, the words panic crept up her spine like ice water. Night was falling. The temperature was already dropping. Where would they sleep? What would they eat? How would she feed her daughter when the milk dried up from cold and starvation? The station master, an elderly man with kind eyes and stooped shoulders, approached hesitantly. His boots scraped against the wooden planks, each step an apology. "Miss, we're closing up for the night. Is someone coming for you?" Eleanor forced a smile that felt like shattered porcelain. "I'm sure they'll be here any moment." The lie hung in the air between them, transparent as morning mist. "I see." He didn't believe her. The kindness in his eyes made it worse. "Well, there's a boarding house 2 streets over. Mrs. Henderson might have a room if you've got the money." Eleanor's silence was answer enough. The old man sighed the weight of the world in that single breath. "Listen, I can't let you stay here overnight. It gets cold, and with a baby—" He trailed off, clearly uncomfortable with the image forming in both their minds. "There's a church down Main Street. Pastor Williams and his wife might be able to help." Charity, the word Eleanor had sworn she would never need again. The word that tasted like ashes in her mouth. "Thank you," she whispered, blinking back tears that threatened to betray the composure she desperately tried to maintain. As the station master retreated to his office, Eleanor sank onto the wooden bench, exhaustion overwhelming her fragile reserve. Lily's cries had subsided into hiccuping sobs. The baby was hungry. Eleanor was hungry. They were both cold and tired and utterly, completely alone. She pulled the letter from her pocket, reading it for the 100th time. Jacob Hayes's careful script described a comfortable ranch house, a prosperous cattle operation, and a need for a wife to help manage his household. He had seemed kind in his letters, respectful. He had even said he didn't mind about the baby. But those had been lies, apparently. Or perhaps he had taken one look at her stepping off the train, plain exhausted with a crying infant, and changed his mind. Men did that. Thomas Whitmore had taught her that lesson well. Promise everything, deliver nothing, disappear when consequences appeared. "Excuse me, ma'am." The deep voice startled her from bitter memories. Eleanor looked up to find a man standing a few feet away, hat in his hands. Her breath caught in her throat. He was enormous. Easily 6 feet 4 inches tall, with shoulders that seemed to span half the platform. Dark hair fell across his forehead, and a scar ran through his left eyebrow like a lightning strike frozen in flesh. His eyes, almost black in the fading light, studied her with an intensity that made her heart hammer against her ribs. But it wasn't fear that gripped her. Something else. Something she couldn't name. "I don't mean to intrude," he continued, his voice a low rumble like distant thunder. "But I couldn't help noticing you've been sitting here a while. Are you waiting for someone?" Eleanor straightened her spine, trying to summon dignity she didn't feel. "That's really none of your concern, sir." "No, ma'am, you're right about that." He didn't move away, though. His boots stayed planted on the platform as if he had taken root there. "It's just, well, it's getting dark and cold, and you've got a baby there." "I'm perfectly aware of the situation, thank you." He was quiet for a moment, then took a step closer. Despite his size, there was something careful in the way he moved, like he was trying not to frighten a wounded animal. My name's Nathan Carter. I run a ranch about 10 miles north of here. I came into town for supplies and he hesitated, seeming to struggle with his words. Look, I don't know your circumstances and I won't pry, but if you need help, I'd be obliged to offer it. Eleanor studied him more carefully now. His clothes were clean but worn in the clothes of a working man. His face was weathered and lined, probably in his late 30s or early 40s. The scar through his eyebrows spoke of violence, but his hands, large as they were held, his hat with surprising gentleness. "Why would you help a stranger?" she asked quietly. Nathan Carter's jaw tightened. Something painful flickered across his face there and gone like a shooting star. "Let's just say I know what it's like to be alone and out of options. I wouldn't wish that on anyone, especially not a woman with a baby." Lily chose that moment to let out a wail that echoed across the empty platform. Eleanor's arms ached from holding her, and her breasts were painfully full. She needed to feed the baby somewhere warm and private, and she needed to do it soon. "I was supposed to meet someone," Eleanor heard herself say. The words tumbled out before she could stop them. "A Mr. Jacob Hayes. I came here to marry him. We'd been corresponding for 3 months, but he didn't come." Understanding flickered across Nathan Carter's face. Not pity, something deeper. Recognition, perhaps. "A mail order arrangement." "Yes." The admission burned like acid in her throat. Clearly, he changed his mind. Nathan Carter was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his words changed everything. "Jacob Hayes died 2 weeks ago. Horse kicked him in the head, killed him instantly." The platform seemed to tilt beneath Eleanor's feet. "He's dead." "Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry. I knew Jacob not well, but enough to know he was a decent man. If he'd been alive, he would have been here." The relief and grief tangled together in Eleanor's chest, a knot she couldn't untie. He hadn't rejected her. He hadn't changed his mind when he saw her. He had simply died. Fate, not cruelty, had left her stranded on this platform. "I didn't know," she whispered. "No one told me." "There wasn't anyone to tell you, probably. Jacob lived alone." Nathan shifted his weight, still holding his hat. "Look, Miss Harper. Eleanor Harper. Miss Harper, I'm going to speak plainly because you're in a hard spot and you need to know your options." He met her eyes directly, no deception, no hidden agenda in his gaze. "You can try the boarding house, but Mrs. Henderson charges $2 a night, and that's if she has a room. You can go to the church and ask for charity, which might work for a night or two, but not longer." He paused as if weighing his next words carefully. "Or," Eleanor prompted, "or you can come with me to my ranch. I've got a housekeeper's cabin that's empty. I could use help around the place. I can pay you wages, not much, but enough to get by on. Room and board included. You and the baby would be safe and warm and fed." Eleanor's heart began to pound. "You're asking me to come live at your ranch?" "As my employee," Nathan clarified quickly. "I've got a housekeeper's cabin that's separate from the main house. You'd have your own space. You're by your own privacy." "I wouldn't." He seemed to struggle for words. "I'm not asking for anything improper, Miss Harper. I'm offering you a ball and a safe place to stay. That's all." "Why would you do this? You don't know me." Nathan met her eyes, and in that moment, Eleanor saw past the scarred exterior to the wounded man beneath. "I've been alone for 5 years. My wife died in childbirth along with our son. I wasn't there when it happened. I was 3 towns over buying cattle. By the time I got home, they were already buried. I never got to say goodbye. I never got to hold my son." His voice cracked on the last word, and Eleanor saw moisture gathering in those dark eyes. "I've lived alone for 5 years, Miss Harper. 5 years of silence and empty rooms and wondering what the point of it all is. When I saw you sitting here holding your baby, looking so lost." He stopped, swallowed hard. "Maybe I thought I could do something right for once. Maybe I just wanted to hear a baby cry in my house again. I honestly don't know." Eleanor looked down at Lily, who had quieted in her arms, watching the big man with curious eyes. She thought of the long, cold night ahead, of hunger and fear and uncertainty. She thought of charity at the church, of judgmental eyes and whispered prayers. She thought of having no choice at all. Then she looked back at Nathan Carter and saw the truth written plainly on his scarred face. He was as broken as she was, as desperate in his own way, not for a woman but for redemption, for a chance to save someone when he hadn't been able to save his own family. If I agreed, she said it slowly, it would be temporary, just until I can figure out something else. Save some money. Of course, you can leave whenever you want. I won't stop you. And you swear you won't expect anything from me beyond household work. Nathan's expression darkened slightly, but not with anger, with understanding. I give you my word, Miss Harper. You and your daughter will be safe in my home. I'll never lay a hand on you unless you ask me to, and I'll never ask. This is a job offer, honest and true. Nothing more, nothing less. Eleanor looked down at Lily Rose, who had quieted completely. Now her small fist curled against Eleanor's chest. She thought of Thomas Whitmore and his empty promises. She thought of her father's drunken rages and her sister's cold charity. She thought of every man who had ever looked at her with calculation in their eyes. Then she looked at Nathan Carter and saw only bone-deep weariness and a desperate need to do something good in a world that had taken everything from him. All right, she said quietly, I'll come with you. Nathan's shoulders relaxed slightly, though tension still held his massive frame rigid. Good, that's good. He gestured toward the street. I've got a wagon just down the way. Let me take your bag. As Eleanor stood, her legs shaky from sitting so long, Nathan reached for her carpet bag. His hand brushed hers and she was startled by the warmth of his skin, the rough calluses that spoke of hard work and harder years. Thank you, she murmured. No need for thanks. Come on, let's get you and the little one somewhere warm. They walked toward the wagon in silence. Eleanor couldn't help but notice the way people on the street glanced at them, the enormous scarred cowboy and the small woman with a baby. What must they think? She pushed the thought aside. It didn't matter. Nothing mattered except getting Lily somewhere safe. Nathan's wagon was sturdy and well-maintained, though the wood showed years of use. He helped her up onto the seat with surprising gentleness, his large hands careful as he steadied her elbow. Here, he said, pulling a thick wool blanket from behind the seat. Wrap this around you and the baby. It's a cold ride out to the ranch. Eleanor accepted the blanket gratefully, tucking it around Lily Rose. The baby made a small sound of contentment, finally warm. Nathan climbed up beside her, and Eleanor was acutely aware of how much space he took up. He wasn't just tall. He was broad and solid like a mountain given human form. Yet when he glanced down at her, there was nothing threatening in his expression, only concern and a weariness that matched her own. Comfortable enough, he asked. Yes, thank you. He picked up the reins and clicked to the horses. As the wagon began to move, Eleanor watched Redemption Creek fade behind them, the lights of town growing dimmer in the gathering darkness. She was leaving civilization behind, heading into the wilderness with a man she'd known for less than an hour. Every rational thought screamed that this was madness, but desperation had its own logic, and something in Nathan Carter's eyes told her that whatever dangers lay ahead, they wouldn't come from him. Mr. Carter, she said after a few minutes of silence. Nathan, just Nathan. Nathan, I need to feed the baby soon. She's overdue for her evening feeding. We'll stop in about a mile. There's a sheltered spot by the creek. I was 3 towns over buying cattle, thinking about expanding the herd, planning for a future that was already dying, while I counted money and shook hands on deals. He stopped swallowing hard. By the time I got home, they were both already buried. Margaret had gone into labor early. Complications. She bled out. The baby Thomas, he was too small. Didn't even live an hour. They're buried together on a hill overlooking the ranch. I never got to hold my son. Never got to tell my wife I was sorry for not being there. Never got to say goodbye. A single tear tracked down his weathered cheek. He wiped it away quickly as if ashamed. I've lived alone for 5 years, Miss Harper. 5 years of silence and empty rooms and wondering what the point of it all is. When I saw you sitting there on that platform holding your baby looking so lost, I thought maybe I could do something right for once. Maybe I could save someone when I failed to save the people I loved most. Eleanor's throat tightened with unexpected emotion. I'm sorry for your loss. I'm sorry for whatever brought you here desperate enough to marry a stranger. The compassion in his voice undid something in Eleanor's careful composure. She found herself speaking truths she had sworn to keep buried. Lily Rose's father was a man named Thomas Whitmore. the son of a factory owner in Philadelphia. He said he loved me, promised marriage. Then when I told him I was pregnant, he disappeared like smoke. His father gave me $50 and told me to never speak the Whitmore name again. My own father threw me out when he found out, called me a whore. My sister Martha took me in, but she made it clear every single day how much of a burden we were. When I saw Jacob Hayes's advertisement for a mail-order bride, it seemed like a chance to start over, to give Lily Rose a better life than charity and shame. You love her, Nathan observed. The baby, that's clear. She's everything to me, my whole world. Then we'll make sure she's taken care of. Nathan pulled the wagon to a stop near a small grove of cottonwood trees. The sound of running water whispered through the darkness. Here's the spot I mentioned, and take your time. I'll water the horses. He climbed down and moved away, giving her complete privacy. Eleanor was struck by his consideration. Most men would have watched, would have made her feel uncomfortable. But Nathan disappeared into the darkness, his voice a low murmur as he spoke to the horses. Eleanor fed Lily Rose in the sheltered darkness, listening to the sound of the creek and Nathan's quiet words to the animals. When she finished, she called out softly, and Nathan returned to help her back onto the wagon seat. All set. Yes, thank you. They continued into the darkness, and Eleanor found herself relaxing slightly. Whatever happened next, at least tonight Lily Rose would sleep somewhere warm. Tell me about your ranch, she said, wanting to fill the silence with something other than their shared pain. Nathan seemed to consider his words. It's about 640 acres. I run cattle mostly, some horses. The house is, well, it's bigger than one man needs. My father built it thinking he'd fill it with children. He got me and 2 daughters, both of whom married and moved east. When he died, he left it all to me. I've kept it running, but he trailed off. But it's lonely, Eleanor finished. Yes, ma'am, it's lonely. They fell into a comfortable silence after that. Eleanor found herself studying Nathan's hands on the reins, large and scarred but steady, strong hands that had clearly worked hard for everything he had. After about an hour, lights appeared in the distance. That's home, Nathan said quietly. As they drew closer, Eleanor could make out a large 2-story house, well-maintained despite its age. There was a barn, several outbuildings, and what looked like a small cabin set apart from the main house. That's where you'll stay, Nathan said, pointing to the cabin. It's not fancy, but it's clean and warm. I'll get a fire going for you. He pulled the wagon to a stop in front of the main house and climbed down, then turned to help Eleanor. His hand spanned her waist as he lifted her down, and she was struck by how careful he was, as if she might shatter like glass. Let me show you the cabin first. Get you settled. Eleanor followed him across the yard, Lily Rose drowsy in her arms. Nathan opened the cabin door and lit a lamp, revealing a single room with simple but sturdy furnishings. A bed with a thick quilt, a small table and chairs, a wood stove, a rocking chair by the window. It's perfect, Eleanor breathed. Nathan moved to the stove, quickly building a fire. His large hands worked with surprising dexterity, arranging kindling, striking a match, coaxing flame from cold wood. Within minutes, warmth began to fill the small space. I'll bring you some food from the main house. There's a well just outside. Water's clean and cold. Chamber pots under the bed. In the morning, I'll show you around properly. Explain what needs doing. Nathan, he turned to look at her. Thank you, truly. You've been incredibly kind. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe, or pain, as if kindness was so foreign to him that gratitude felt like an accusation. Get some rest, Miss Harper. You've had a long day. He left, closing the door softly behind him. Eleanor stood in the warm cabin holding her sleeping daughter, and for the first time in months she felt something like hope stirring in her chest. True to his word, Nathan returned 20 minutes later with a basket of food: bread, cheese, cold chicken, and a jar of milk. I wasn't sure what you'd need for the baby, he said, hovering in the doorway as if afraid to come inside. But there's fresh milk from this morning if she takes it. She's still nursing, but thank you. This is wonderful. Nathan nodded, still not meeting her eyes. If you need anything during the night, the main house is just across the yard. Don't hesitate to knock. I'm sure we'll be fine. Right, well, good night then. Good night, Nathan. After he left, Eleanor ate ravenously, suddenly aware of how hungry she had been. Then she changed Lily Rose into a clean diaper and settled into the bed. The mattress was comfortable, the quilts thick and warm. Lily Rose nursed again and fell into a deep sleep against Eleanor's chest. As Eleanor closed her eyes, she found herself thinking about Nathan Carter. His sad eyes, his gentle hands, the way he had offered help without asking for anything in return. She had come to Wyoming territory to marry a stranger for security. Instead, she had found something she hadn't expected. Kindness. Real, honest kindness from a man who had nothing to gain from helping her. Maybe, just maybe, they would be all right here. The next morning, Eleanor woke to sunlight streaming through the cabin window and the smell of coffee. She sat up confused to find a tray on the table. Fresh coffee, biscuits, and eggs. Nathan must have brought it while she slept. She fed and changed Lily Rose, then ventured outside. The ranch was beautiful in the morning light, surrounded by rolling hills and pine forests. Cattle dotted the distant pastures, and horses grazed in a nearby corral. The Wind River Mountains rose in the distance, their peaks already dusted with early snow. Nathan emerged from the barn, saw her, and raised a hand in greeting. He crossed the yard with long strides. "Morning," he said, his voice still rough with the remnants of sleep. "Hope you rested well." "Very well, thank you, and thank you for breakfast." "Figured you'd be hungry." He glanced at Lily Rose, who was watching him with bright eyes. "How's the little one? Happy now that she's had a full night's sleep?" Nathan's expression softened. "She's beautiful. How old?" "3 months." "She's got your eyes." Eleanor felt heat rise to her cheeks. "That's kind of you to say." An awkward silence fell between them. Nathan cleared his throat. "Well, I thought I'd show you around today, give you a sense of what needs doing, but only if you're up for it. If you need more rest, that's fine too." "I'd like to see everything," Eleanor interrupted. "I want to earn my keep." "All right then, let's start at the main house." The house was indeed large, a sprawling structure with a wide front porch and large windows. Inside, Eleanor found beautiful woodwork and spacious rooms, but also evidence of Nathan's bachelor existence. Dishes were piled in the sink, dust covered most surfaces, laundry was heaped in corners. "I told you I'm not much of a housekeeper," Nathan said, sounding almost embarrassed. Eleanor couldn't help but smile. "It's nothing I can't handle." "I don't expect you to do everything at once," he said quickly. "Take your time. Focus on whatever you think is most important." Over the next hour, Nathan showed her where everything was. The pantry, surprisingly well stocked. The linen closet, the kitchen pump. He was thorough but never condescending, treating her like a competent adult rather than a charity case. "What about Lily Rose?" Eleanor asked. "While I'm working." "Bring her with you. I don't mind a baby in the house. Might be nice, actually." His voice caught slightly on the last word. Eleanor studied his profile, saw the grief he tried to hide. "How old would your son be now if he'd lived?" Nathan's jaw tightened. 5. Almost 5. "I'm sorry." "Me too," he turned to face her. "Look, Miss Harper, Eleanor, if I can call you that, I know this arrangement is strange, but I want you to know you're not a servant here. You're someone helping me out while I help you out. We're partners in this. Equals. Understand?" Eleanor nodded, touched by his earnestness. "I understand." "Good. Now, do you cook?" Eleanor laughed. "Yes, that's one thing I can definitely do." Relief washed over Nathan's face. "Thank the Lord, I was about to starve to death on my own cooking." The day passed in a blur of activity. Eleanor cooked a proper lunch, the first hot meal Nathan had eaten in weeks that didn't taste like charcoal. She started on the laundry, tackled the kitchen, and made a list of supplies they'd need. Through it all, Nathan was nearby helping where he could, playing with Lily Rose when Eleanor's hands were full. The sight of the huge, rough cowboy gently bouncing the baby made something in Eleanor's chest ache. He was so careful with her, so tender. This man, who looked like he could break a person in half, held her daughter like she was made of spun glass. That evening, after another meal which Nathan praised effusively, Eleanor put Lily Rose to bed in the cabin and returned to the main house to finish the kitchen. She found Nathan on the front porch, watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of gold and crimson. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said as she joined him. "Yes, I've never seen anything like it." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Nathan said, "You did good work today, more than I expected." "I told you I'd earn my keep." "You've already earned more than that." He turned to look at her, his dark eyes serious. "Eleanor, I want you to know you're welcome here for as long as you need, whether that's a week or a year or longer. There's no pressure, no expectations beyond what we've agreed to. Why are you so kind to me? Eleanor asked softly. The truth, Nathan. He was quiet for a long time, staring out at the darkening sky. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Because everyone deserves a second chance. I've spent 5 years punishing myself for not being there when my family needed me for failing them. Maybe helping you and Lily Rose is my way of making up for that. I don't know. Does that make sense? Yes, Eleanor said. It makes perfect sense. Nathan turned to her, and in the fading light, Eleanor saw something in his expression that made her breath catch. Not desire, not exactly. Something deeper, longing maybe, a need for connection that went beyond the physical. I should get back to Lily Rose, she said, suddenly nervous. Of course. Good night, Eleanor. Good night, Nathan. As she walked back to the cabin, Eleanor's heart was racing. She told herself it was just gratitude. She felt relief at having found a safe place. But deep down, she knew it was something more. The weeks that followed fell into a comfortable rhythm. Eleanor cooked and cleaned, tended the house and the vegetable garden, and cared for Lily Rose. Nathan worked the ranch, fixed things that needed fixing, and came home each evening to hot meals in a house that finally felt like a home. They talked during dinner, careful conversations at first, then deeper ones. Nathan told her about his childhood, his parents, his dreams for the ranch. Eleanor shared stories about Philadelphia, her family, the dreams she'd once had before life got complicated. They never touched, never crossed the invisible line Nathan had drawn that first night. But the tension between them grew stronger each day. Eleanor noticed the way Nathan's eyes followed her as she moved around the kitchen, the way his voice softened when he spoke to her, the way he always made sure she had everything she needed before he thought of himself. And she noticed her own reactions, the flutter in her stomach when he smiled, the warmth that spread through her when his hand accidentally brushed hers, the way she found herself watching him through the window as he worked, admiring the strength in his shoulders, the easy confidence in the way he handled the horses. On a crisp October morning, Eleanor was hanging laundry when she heard a commotion from the barn. She quickly settled Lily Rose in her basket and hurried over to find Nathan struggling with a young mare that had gotten spooked. Easy, girl, Nathan murmured, his voice low and soothing. Easy now. Eleanor watched mesmerized as his large hands moved over the horse's neck, calming her with gentle strokes. The mare finally settled, and Nathan looked up to find Eleanor watching him. Didn't mean to worry you, he said, slightly breathless. She got startled by a snake. You're good with her, Eleanor observed, stepping closer. Animals respond to a gentle hand, Nathan said, still stroking the mare's neck. They can sense when someone means them harm. When they're safe, they settle. Eleanor felt her cheeks warm. Is that why Lily Rose adores you so much? Nathan's expression softened. That little girl has stolen my heart. I hope that's all right. More than all right. Eleanor moved closer, close enough to smell leather and hay, and something uniquely Nathan. She needs a father figure. I never imagined she'd have that. Every child deserves to feel loved and protected, Nathan said quietly. His eyes met hers, dark and intense. Every woman does too. The moment stretched between them, charged with unspoken feelings. Eleanor's heart pounded so loudly she was certain Nathan could hear it. I should get back to the laundry, she whispered, but she didn't move. Eleanor. Nathan's hand lifted, then dropped back to his side as if he'd stopped himself from reaching for her. I want you to know something. These weeks with you here, they've meant more to me than I can say. They've meant something to me too, Eleanor admitted. Nathan took a step closer, and Eleanor had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. If I ever make you uncomfortable, if I ever cross a line, you tell me. I meant what I said that first night. You're safe here. I know I am, Eleanor said. I've never felt safer in my life. Something flickered in Nathan's eyes, hope maybe, or longing, but he simply nodded and turned back to the mare, and Eleanor returned to her laundry with trembling hands. That week, Nathan asked Eleanor to accompany him into town for supplies. So you know your way around, he explained, and you can choose what you need for the house. Redemption Creek was a small settlement, just a handful of buildings clustered around a dusty main street. But to Eleanor, who had lived in Philadelphia her whole life, it felt like stepping into another world. Cowboys tied their horses to hitching posts. Women in calico dresses hurried between shops. The air smelled of horses and dust and pine. They stopped at the general store, and Eleanor was immediately aware of eyes on them, the enormous scarred rancher and the young woman with a baby. Whispers followed in their wake. "Well, well," a voice called out, sharp as broken glass. "Nathan Carter, I heard you had a new housekeeper." Eleanor turned to see a woman in an expensive dress approaching them, her eyes glittering with malice. This was Charlotte Thornton, and Eleanor knew immediately that this woman would be trouble. "Mrs. Thornton," Nathan said, his voice cold, "and this must be the unfortunate mail order girl." Charlotte continued, looking Eleanor up and down with undisguised contempt. "I heard you were supposed to marry Jacob Hayes. Such a shame he died before you arrived. Or perhaps fortunate for him." Eleanor bit her lip, determined to stay silent. Charlotte wasn't finished. "And this precious baby. She's not Jacob's, is she? Whose child is she really, girl? What kind of woman travels across the country with a bastard baby to trap a man into marriage?" The words hit Eleanor like physical blows. Her face burned with shame and anger. But before she could respond, Nathan stepped between them. His full height was suddenly very intimidating, and Charlotte took an involuntary step back. "Mrs. Thornton," Nathan said, his voice deadly quiet, "you're talking about my employee, a woman under my protection. If you have a problem with that, you take it up with me. But I warn you, I won't be polite next time." The entire store had gone silent. Every eye was on them. Charlotte's face flushed red. "I was merely stating facts." "You were being cruel to a young mother who's done nothing to deserve your judgment," Nathan continued. "Eleanor Harper has more courage in her little finger than you have in your whole body. She traveled 1,000 miles to give her daughter a better life. That's bravery, Mrs. Thornton, not something you have any right to mock." He turned to Eleanor, his voice gentling. "Come on, we're leaving." Outside, Eleanor's hands were shaking. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cause trouble." "You didn't cause anything," Nathan said firmly. "Charlotte Thornton is a bitter woman who enjoys tearing others down. Don't let her words affect you. But now the whole town will be talking about us. Let them talk." Nathan looked directly into her eyes. "I don't care what they think. I only care that you and Lily Rose are safe and happy. The rest doesn't matter." Something shifted in Eleanor's chest at those words, a warmth spreading through her like sunrise. No one had ever defended her like that. No one had ever made her feel like she mattered. On the ride back to the ranch, Eleanor found herself stealing glances at Nathan's profile. This man who barely knew her had stood up to the town gossip without hesitation, had made her feel protected and valued. And she realized with startling clarity that she was falling for him. Not just gratitude, not just relief at having found safety, but something deeper, something real. Back at the ranch, as Nathan helped her down from the wagon, his hands lingered on her waist just a moment longer than necessary. Their eyes met, and Eleanor saw her own feelings reflected in his gaze. Neither of them spoke, but something had changed between them. The careful distance they'd maintained was beginning to crack. That night, after Lily Rose was asleep, Eleanor stood at her cabin window looking across the yard at the main house. A single lamp burned in what she knew was Nathan's room. She imagined him there alone, thinking perhaps the same thoughts that kept her awake. She had come to Wyoming territory expecting nothing. No hope, no future, just survival. The first snow came in early November, transforming Silverstone Ranch into a wonderland of white. Eleanor woke to find the world outside her cabin window, blanketed in 6 inches of pristine powder, the morning sun making it sparkle like scattered diamonds. She bundled Lily Rose in warm blankets and stepped outside, her breath forming clouds in the crisp air. The baby's eyes went wide at the sight of snow, and she reached out with tiny hands to touch the cold white substance. "Look, sweetheart," Eleanor whispered. "This is snow, your first winter in Wyoming. Beautiful morning, isn't it?" Eleanor turned to find Nathan emerging from the barn, his dark hair dusted with snowflakes. He was smiling a real smile that transformed his usually serious face, and Eleanor's heart skipped a beat at the sight. "Come here," he said, walking toward them. "Let me show Lily Rose something special." Nathan knelt in the snow and began shaping it with his large hands. Within minutes, he'd created a tiny snowman no more than 2 feet tall. He placed his old hat on top of it, the brim nearly covering the whole creation. "There," he said, standing back with satisfaction. "Lily Rose's first snowman." Eleanor laughed, the sound bright and clear in the winter air. It's perfect. Nathan looked at her, then really looked at her, and something passed between them. A moment of pure connection, unguarded and honest. Eleanor saw longing in his dark eyes, and she knew he could see the same reflected in hers. Lily Rose chose that moment to squeal with delight, breaking the spell. But the feeling lingered warm despite the cold morning air. Over the following weeks, Eleanor and Nathan fell into an even deeper rhythm. They worked side by side, preparing for the harsh Wyoming winter. Nathan chopped wood while Eleanor stacked it. They salted meat from the elk Nathan had hunted. They harvested the last vegetables from the garden and stored them in the root cellar. One afternoon, Nathan found Eleanor in the barn struggling to lift a heavy sack of feed. "Let me," he said easily, hoisting the sack onto his shoulder. "I can manage," Eleanor protested. "I know you can, but you don't have to do everything alone anymore." He set the sack down where she needed it. "That's what partners do. They help each other." Partners. The word hung in the air between them, meaning more than just employer and employee. "Nathan," Eleanor said softly, "would you teach me to shoot?" He looked surprised. "Why?" "Because when you're out working the far pastures, I'm here alone with Lily Rose. If something happened to bear or a wolf or—" She didn't finish the sentence, but Nathan understood. "All right," he agreed. "I'll teach you." The next day, Nathan brought out his Colt 45 and set up tin cans on the fence rail. He stood behind Eleanor, adjusting her stance, his arms coming around her to position her hands correctly on the heavy revolver. "Breathe out slowly," he instructed, his voice low near her ear. "Squeeze the trigger. Don't pull." Eleanor was acutely aware of his body pressed against her back, his breath warm on her neck. Her heart raced, and it had nothing to do with the gun in her hands. "Ready?" Nathan asked. She nodded, unable to speak. She squeezed the trigger. The gun kicked back hard, but Nathan's hand steadied hers. The tin can flew off the fence. "You did it!" Nathan exclaimed, turning her around in his excitement. Their faces were inches apart. Nathan's smile faded as he realized how close they were. His gaze dropped to her lips, then back to her eyes. Eleanor's breath caught. For a moment she thought he would kiss her, wanted him to kiss her, but Lily Rose's cry from the blanket where Eleanor had laid her shattered the moment. Nathan stepped back quickly, clearing his throat. "Good shooting," he said gruffly. "Practice makes perfect." Eleanor nodded, her hands trembling as she handed back the gun. Not from the recoil, from something else entirely. That evening, as they sat at dinner, Nathan seemed unusually quiet. Finally, he spoke. "Eleanor, I've been thinking. Winter's going to be hard. Supplies might run low. If you wanted to go back east before the worst of it hits, I'd understand. I'd give you money for the ticket and enough to get established somewhere." Eleanor set down her fork, her chest tight with sudden fear. "Do you want me to leave?" "No." The word came out fierce and immediate. "God, no, but I don't want you to feel trapped here either. I want you to stay because you want to, not because you have no choice." "I want to stay," Eleanor said quietly. "This is home now, for me and Lily Rose, unless you want us to go." Nathan reached across the table and took her hand. It was the first time he'd initiated physical contact beyond helping her down from the wagon or steadying her arm. His palm was warm and rough, completely engulfing her smaller hand. "I want you to stay," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "More than you know." Their eyes met and held. Neither pulled away. The air between them crackled with unspoken words, unfulfilled longing. "Nathan, I need to tell you something," Eleanor began. But before she could continue, the sound of approaching horses shattered the moment. Nathan was on his feet instantly, his hand moving to the gun at his hip. "Stay inside," he ordered, moving to the window. Through the glass, Eleanor saw 3 men on horseback riding toward the house. The man in front was heavy-set, wearing an expensive coat that looked out of place in the rugged Wyoming landscape. Flanking him were 2 rough-looking men, clearly hired guns. One of them, a lean man with a scar across his right cheek, had cold, calculating eyes. Nathan's jaw tightened. "Walter Thornton." He stepped out onto the porch, and Eleanor, ignoring his order to stay inside, followed with Lily Rose in her arms. "Carter," the heavy man called out, not bothering to dismount. "We need to talk." "Then talk, Thornton, but make it quick. I've got work to do." Walter Thornton's eyes were small and mean like a pig's. "I'll be direct. Your ranch is failing. Everyone can see it. You've lost cattle over the years. Your operation is half what it was. You can't manage this place alone. I'm managing fine. Are you? Walter's gaze slid to Eleanor and Lily Rose. I hear you hired a housekeeper, some mail-order girl who couldn't even land a dead man. That the best you can do? Nathan's hand moved to his gun. Say another word about her and we'll have a different kind of conversation. The scarred man's hand moved toward his weapon, but Nathan's eyes never left Walter. Walter held up his hands in mock surrender. Easy, Carter. I'm here with a business proposition. I'll buy your land, 640 acres. I'll give you $2,000. This ranch is worth $8,000 at minimum. The answer is no. Walter's face reddened. You're a fool, Carter. Winter's coming. It's going to be hard. Cattle will die. You'll run out of money. When that happens, I'll offer you 500, not a penny more. Nathan raised his Winchester, pointing it directly at Walter's chest. Get off my land, now! The two men flanking Walter reached for their guns, but Nathan's aim never wavered. I'd think real careful before you boys make a move, Nathan said, his voice deadly calm. I can put a bullet through your boss's heart before either of you clears leather. There was something in Nathan's tone that made the hired guns hesitate. This wasn't bluster. This was a man who had killed before and would do it again if necessary. The scarred man looked back once as they rode away, his hand resting on his gun. A challenge, a promise of violence to come. After they were gone, Eleanor saw Nathan's hands shaking, not from fear, from barely controlled rage. Who is he? She asked quietly. Neighbor to the south, owns the Double T Ranch. He's wanted my land for years, knows I've been vulnerable since Margaret died. Nathan's expression was grim. Those men with him were hired guns. Walter's not just trying to buy the ranch anymore. He's preparing for war. But you're not vulnerable anymore, Eleanor said firmly. You have help now. We'll get through the winter together. Nathan looked at her, and something in his expression made her heart ache. You'd fight for this place, even though it's not yours. It is mine, Eleanor said simply. It's our home, and no one takes our home from us. Nathan's eyes glistened with unshed tears. He pulled her into a sudden, fierce embrace. Lily rose between them. Eleanor felt his heart pounding against her cheek, felt the strength in his arms, and knew with absolute certainty that she loved this man. Thank you, he whispered into her hair. Thank you for being here. They stood like that for a long moment, neither wanting to let go. When they finally separated, both knew something had fundamentally changed between them. The threat from Walter Thornton proved more serious than Nathan had anticipated. A week later, he rode out to check the northern pasture and found the fence cut in 3 places. 60 head of cattle were missing. He tracked them to Walter Thornton's land and found his stolen cattle in Thornton's corral, already bearing the Double T brand over his own Silverstone mark. Those are my cattle, Nathan said, his voice tight with fury. Walter stood on his porch, a smug smile on his face. Prove it. They wandered onto my land, finders keepers. They have my brand underneath yours. Brands can be similar, honest mistake. Nathan rode to Sheriff Bill Cooper's office in town, but the lawman who everyone knew was in Walter's pocket just shrugged. Without witnesses to the fence cutting, there's nothing I can do, Nate. Your word against his. Nathan returned to Silverstone Ranch defeated. He'd lost 60 cattle worth over $1,200. Money he needed to get through the winter. Money he didn't have. That evening, he sat by the fireplace in the main house, his head in his hands. Eleanor found him there, staring into the flames. We won't make it through winter, he said without looking up. I can't pay you, can't buy supplies. Walter's going to get what he wants after all. Eleanor disappeared into her cabin. When she returned, she held something in her hand. A silver locket, the only thing she owned that had any value. Her mother's locket passed down through 3 generations. Sell this, she said, placing it in Nathan's palm. No. He tried to hand it back. This is from your mother. It's all you have of her. And now I'm giving it to you. To us. Eleanor knelt beside his chair. We're partners, remember? Partners help each other. We'll sell this, buy what we need to get through winter, and then we'll fight back. Together. Nathan looked at the locket, then at Eleanor's determined face. I don't deserve you. Yes, you do. We deserve each other. Now take it. Use it. Save our home. Nathan pulled her close, pressing his forehead against hers. I love you, he whispered. God help me. I love you, Eleanor Harper. Eleanor's breath caught. What did you say? I love you. I've been trying not to. Telling myself it was too soon, that you deserve better than a broken-down rancher twice your age. But I can't help it. I love you. I love Lily Rose. I love the life we're building together. Tears streamed down Eleanor's face. I love you too, Nathan. I've been so scared to say it, scared you'd send me away. But I love you. You're the best man I've ever known. Nathan cupped her face in his large hands, his thumbs wiping away her tears. Then he kissed her. Soft at first, tentative, giving her every chance to pull away. But Eleanor didn't pull away. She melted into him, her hands gripping his shirt, kissing him back with all the pent-up longing of the past months. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Nathan rested his forehead against hers. Marry me, he said, not because of convenience, not because you need a home, but because I love you and I want to spend the rest of my life proving it to you. Yes, Eleanor whispered. Yes, Nathan, 1,000 times yes. Nathan lifted her into his arms and spun her around, both of them laughing like children. When he set her down, his expression turned serious. I want to do this right, court you properly. I know we're already living under the same roof, but I want to show you that you're special to me, that this means something. And court her he did. Every day, Nathan brought Eleanor small gifts, wildflowers preserved in pressed paper, a new rocking chair he'd carved himself for her cabin, a wooden rattle for Lily Rose with intricate designs. In the evenings, he read to her from books of poetry, his deep voice making the words come alive. He was tender and attentive, treating her like something precious. And Eleanor blossomed under his care, feeling beautiful and valued for the first time in her life. 2 weeks after his proposal, Nathan took Eleanor into town to buy a proper engagement ring. The jeweler had only one in stock, a simple gold band with a small diamond. It's not much, Nathan said apologetically. When we have more money, I'll buy you something better. It's perfect, Eleanor said, tears in her eyes. I don't want anything else. As Nathan slipped the ring onto her finger, the jeweler's wife dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. Young love, she sighed. Eleanor and Nathan shared a smile. Not so young, perhaps, but love nonetheless, real and true and worth waiting for. The town's reaction to their engagement was mixed. Some congratulated them warmly, others whispered behind their hands. Charlotte Thornton made sure to cross the street rather than acknowledge them. But Nathan didn't care. He held Eleanor's hand proudly as they walked down Main Street, introducing her as his fiancée, daring anyone to say something negative. They planned to marry in the spring after the worst of winter had passed. But fate had other plans. In mid-December, disaster struck. Nathan woke in the middle of the night to the smell of smoke. He threw open his bedroom window and saw flames engulfing the barn. Fire, he shouted, pulling on his pants and boots. Eleanor appeared in the yard in her nightgown, Lily Rose in her arms. Nathan, what's happening? The barn's on fire. Stay back. But Nathan couldn't stay back. There were 12 horses in that barn. He couldn't let them burn. He ran into the inferno smoke, choking his lungs. The heat was unbearable, but he pushed through opening stall after stall, driving terrified horses out into the night. Eleanor watched in horror as a beam crashed down, blocking Nathan's exit. She didn't think. She grabbed a wet blanket from the pump, threw it over herself, and ran into the fire. Eleanor, no! Nathan's voice was hoarse from smoke. Take my hand, she screamed. Nathan grabbed her hand and Eleanor led him through the flames, the wet blanket protecting them both. They burst out of the barn just as the roof collapsed behind them. They fell into the snow, coughing and gasping. Nathan's hands were badly burned, his eyebrows singed. Eleanor's nightgown was scorched and smoking. Why did you do that? Nathan demanded when he could speak. You could have done it. So could you, Eleanor shot back. I couldn't lose you, Nathan. I couldn't. They stared at each other, both realizing how close they'd come to tragedy. Then Nathan pulled her close, kissing her, desperately tasting smoke and fear and love. When Sheriff Cooper arrived the next morning to investigate, he found evidence of arson. Someone had poured lamp oil around the barn's foundation. Any idea who might have done this? The sheriff asked, though his tone suggested he already knew. Walter Thornton, Nathan said flatly. That's a serious accusation. You got proof. Just the proof of my burned barn and dead horses. 3 horses had perished in the fire. The barn was a total loss. Nathan's hands were burned badly enough that Dr. Harrison said he couldn't do heavy work for at least 3 weeks. How am I supposed to run the ranch? Nathan asked, frustration clear in his voice. I'll do it, Eleanor said. Both men turned to stare at her. You can't, Nathan began. I can and I will. You taught me how to care for the horses, how to feed the cattle, how to chop wood. I can do this. Dr. Harrison smiled. I think she means it, Nate. And Eleanor did mean it. For the next 3 weeks, while Nathan's hands healed, she took over the ranch work. She fed the cattle every morning, trudging through snow that sometimes came up to her knees. She chopped wood until her hands blistered, then wrapped them and kept chopping. She cared for the horse, had repaired fences, and still managed to cook clean and care for Lily Rose. The townspeople who saw her working began to change their opinions. This wasn't some fragile city girl playing at ranch life. This was a woman with steel in her spine fighting for her home and her family. One afternoon, about 2 weeks into Eleanor's ranch work, an unexpected visitor arrived. Charlotte Thornton's fine carriage pulled into the yard, looking out of place among the working tools and muddy ground. Eleanor tensed, expecting another confrontation. But when Charlotte stepped down from her carriage, her expression was troubled rather than haughty. Miss Harper, Charlotte said quietly, might we speak privately? Eleanor glanced toward the house where Nathan was resting his burned hands, then nodded. All right. They walked to the garden where Eleanor had been pulling weeds before Charlotte arrived. For a long moment, Charlotte said nothing, just watched Eleanor's work-roughened hands. I owe you an apology, Charlotte finally said. Several apologies, actually. I've been cruel to you since the day you arrived. Judgmental. Vicious, even. Eleanor waited, saying nothing. I've been watching you these past weeks, Charlotte continued. Watching you work this ranch while Nathan heals. Watching you care for your daughter and still find time to chop wood and feed cattle. I've never seen a woman work so hard, and it shamed me. Shamed you. I've spent my whole life doing nothing but managing servants and attending social functions. I've never built anything. Never sacrificed for anyone. You've done more in 1 year than I've done in 45. Charlotte's voice cracked. And I was cruel to you because you made me feel inadequate. Not because you did anything wrong, but because your strength highlighted my weakness. Eleanor felt her anger soften slightly. Mrs. Thornton, there's more, Charlotte interrupted. Something you need to know about my husband. Walter was the one who burned your barn. I didn't know until yesterday. I found lamp oil on his clothes. When I confronted him, he admitted it. Eleanor's hands clenched. Will you testify to that? I will. What he did was wrong. I may not approve of your circumstances, but I won't stand by and let him commit arson. I'm leaving him, going back east to stay with my sister. But before I go, I wanted to make this right. Thank you, Eleanor said quietly. It takes courage to stand up to your husband. After Charlotte left, Eleanor went to find Nathan. He was in the house awkwardly trying to write with his bandaged hands. Charlotte Thornton was just here, Eleanor said. She's willing to testify that Walter burned the barn. Nathan looked up, hope flickering in his eyes. She is. We can fight him, Nathan. We can win. Nathan stood and pulled Eleanor into a careful embrace, mindful of his burned hands. I don't know what I did to deserve you, but I thank God for it every day. They were still embracing when they heard horses approaching. Multiple horses. Nathan moved to the window and went pale. It's your sister. What? Eleanor rushed to look. Sure enough, a fine carriage had pulled up in front of the house. A woman in an expensive traveling suit was stepping down, followed by a well-dressed man. Caroline, Eleanor breathed. She hadn't seen her sister in over a year. Not since Caroline had married Richard Morrison, a wealthy lawyer from Philadelphia, and moved into society circles that had no room for a disgraced sister. Eleanor stepped out onto the porch, Nathan beside her. Caroline looked her up and down, taking in the simple dress, the work-roughened hands, the cabin in the background. Eleanor, Caroline said, her voice cool. You look well, rustic but well. What are you doing here, Caroline? I came to take you home, you and the baby. Caroline's eyes moved to Nathan. I've heard disturbing reports that you're living in sin with this man. That's unacceptable, Eleanor. You're coming back to Philadelphia with me. Richard and I will take care of you. I'm not living in sin, Eleanor said quietly. Nathan and I are engaged. We're getting married in the spring. Carolyn's laugh was sharp and bitter. Married to a cowboy, Eleanor, you deserve better than this. Come home. Bring Lily Rose. We'll give her the life she deserves. Something in Caroline's tone made Eleanor's blood run cold. What do you mean? Richard Morrison stepped forward. What my wife means, Miss Harper, is that Lily Rose deserves a proper family, a father and mother in good standing, not an unwed mother and her questionable employer. I'm her mother, Eleanor said, her voice shaking, and Nathan will be her father. Will he? Carolyn's mask slipped, revealing raw desperation underneath. Or is this just a convenient arrangement? Eleanor, Richard, and I can't have children. We want to raise Lily Rose as our own, give her every advantage, the best schools, the best society, a real name, not the stigma of bastardy. Eleanor felt the world tilt beneath her feet. You want to take my daughter? We want to give her a better life than you can provide, Richard said smoothly. And if you refuse, I'm prepared to file for custody. An unmarried mother with questionable morals living with a man to whom she's not married. Any judge would side with us. Nathan stepped forward, his presence suddenly menacing despite his bandaged hands. She's not unmarried. I beg your pardon, Richard said. Eleanor, marry me. Tonight, right now. Eleanor stared at him. What? Pastor Williams will perform the ceremony. If we're married, they have no legal grounds for custody. Richard's face hardened. That would be a transparent sham marriage. Would it? Nathan turned to Eleanor, his eyes intense. Eleanor Harper, will you marry me tonight? Not because of them, but because I love you and I want you as my wife. Will you? Eleanor looked at her sister's desperate face, at Richard's calculating expression, at Lily Rose sleeping peacefully in the cabin. Then she looked at Nathan, at the love and determination in his eyes. Yes, she said clearly, I'll marry you tonight. 2 hours later, they stood in the small church in Redemption Creek. Pastor Williams had agreed to perform an emergency ceremony despite the late hour. Dr. Harrison and the pastor's wife served as witnesses. Carolyn and Richard stood in the back, their faces masks of fury. Eleanor wore her only good dress, simple blue cotton. Nathan wore his best suit, though it was old and slightly too tight across the shoulders. There were no flowers, no music, no celebration. But when Pastor Williams pronounced them husband and wife, and Nathan kissed her with such tenderness and joy, Eleanor felt like the luckiest woman alive. I love you, Mrs. Carter, Nathan whispered against her lips. I love you, Mr. Carter, Eleanor whispered back. The next morning, Nathan presented their marriage certificate to Richard Morrison. Eleanor is my wife now. Lily Rose is my daughter legally and in every way that matters. Your custody claim is invalid. Carolyn's face crumpled. This isn't fair. We would have given her everything. She has everything, Eleanor said, taking Nathan's hand. She has parents who love her. That's all any child needs. Richard and Caroline left Redemption Creek that afternoon, defeated and bitter. Eleanor watched their carriage disappear down the road and felt nothing but relief. Are you all right? Nathan asked, his arm around her waist. I'm perfect. We're married, Lily Rose is safe, and we're together. Nothing else matters. Nathan turned her to face him. We married in haste, because of your sister. I know it wasn't the wedding you deserved. It was perfect because it was real, because we chose each other. We did, Nathan agreed, but I still want to do this right. I want a proper wedding night, a real beginning for us. That evening, after Lily Rose was asleep in the cabin with Mrs. Henderson, watching her, Nathan led Eleanor to the main house. He'd spent the afternoon preparing. Candles filled the bedroom, their soft light making everything warm and golden. You did this? Eleanor whispered. I wanted it to be special for you. You deserve special. Nathan undressed her slowly, reverently, his bandaged hands clumsy but gentle. When she stood before him in only her chemise, he paused. You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Eleanor blushed. Nathan, I'm not perfect. My body has changed since having Lily Rose. Your body is perfect because it's yours, because it brought our daughter into the world. Don't ever doubt that. Eleanor helped him remove his shirt, seeing the scars that marked his torso. Old wounds from a life of hard living. Your turn to feel self-conscious, she teased gently. Nathan's jaw tightened. I'm not a young man, Eleanor. I'm scarred and rough. And mine, Eleanor finished. Every scar, every line, every part of you is mine, and I love all of it. What followed was tender and passionate, awkward in places because it was their first time together, but beautiful because it was born of genuine love. The next morning, Eleanor woke to find Nathan already up standing by the window. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. He turned his expression serious. "Last night when we made love, I didn't protect you. You could be pregnant." Eleanor sat up, pulling the sheet around her. "Would that be so terrible?" "No, God, no. But after losing Margaret and Thomas, the thought of you pregnant terrifies me. What if something goes wrong? What if I lose you?" Eleanor went to him, taking his face in her hands. "You won't lose me. I'm young and healthy. We'll be careful and we'll have Dr. Harrison close by. And Nathan, I want to give you children. I want to give us a family." Nathan's eyes glistened with tears. "I want that too. So much. I'm just scared." "We'll be scared together. And we'll be brave together. That's what love is." December deepened into January, and with it came the worst blizzard Wyoming had seen in 20 years. Snow fell for 3 days straight, piling up 12 feet high in some places. The temperature dropped to 20 below zero. Nathan and Eleanor were trapped in the main house, unable to even reach the barn. Food ran low. Nathan tried to ration their supplies, but Eleanor noticed he was giving his portions to her. "Nathan, you have to eat," she argued. "You need it more than I do. You're smaller. The cold affects you more. We share equally or I don't eat at all." They compromised, each taking smaller portions so both could eat. Those 2 weeks trapped inside brought them even closer. They played cards by the fireplace. Eleanor read aloud from books Nathan had inherited from his father. Lily Rose took her first steps, wobbling from Eleanor's arms to Nathan's, and both parents cried with joy. When the storm finally broke, they opened the door to find Dr. Harrison and Pastor Williams had dug through the snow to reach them, bringing supplies donated by the townspeople. "The whole town pitched in," Dr. Harrison explained. "Even some of Walter Thornton's ranch hands helped against his orders. People have been impressed by how hard you both work, how you take care of each other." Eleanor felt tears sting her eyes. For the first time, she felt truly accepted by the community. But Walter Thornton wasn't finished. During the blizzard, he'd attempted to file a claim on Nathan's land at the courthouse, saying the property had been abandoned. But Sheriff Cooper, finally finding his conscience, refused to sign off on it. "I know Carter was there during the storm," the sheriff said. "I won't help you steal his land, Thornton. Not anymore." Walter's face turned purple with rage. "I pay you good money. Keep your dirty money. I work for justice now, not the highest bidder." Furious and desperate, Walter decided to take matters into his own hands. He rode to Silverstone Ranch with 5 armed men, including the scarred, hired gun they'd seen before. Nathan saw them coming and banned them and grabbed his Winchester. "Eleanor, stay inside." "I'm not leaving you," she said, loading Nathan's spare rifle. Walter and his men spread out in front of the house, hands near their guns. "Carter," Walter shouted, "this is your last chance. Sell me your land or we take it." Nathan stepped onto the porch, Eleanor beside him, despite his whispered protests. "You'll have to kill me first," Nathan said calmly. "That can be arranged." The scarred man said, his hand moving to his gun. Nathan's rifle came up fast, pointed directly at the man's chest. "Go ahead, make your move. See what happens." There was something in Nathan's voice, something cold and deadly that made the gunman hesitate. "You're Nathan Carter," the scarred man said slowly, realization dawning. "The Nathan Carter, from the Texas Rangers. They called you the Ghost of Pecos." Eleanor's eyes widened. Texas Rangers, Nathan had never mentioned that. "I left that life behind," Nathan said. "But I haven't forgotten how to use a gun. So I'll ask you one more time. Get off my land." Walter's hired guns looked at each other nervously. The Ghost of Pecos was legendary. A man who'd tracked down the worst outlaws in Texas, who'd survived more gunfights than most men survived years. One by one, they turned their horses and rode away, leaving Walter alone. "This isn't over," Walter spat. "Yes, it is," Nathan said. "Sheriff Cooper is done helping you. Your wife is testifying about the arson. And every man in this territory now knows you tried to steal land from a Texas Ranger. Your reputation is finished, Thornton. Leave, while you still can." Walter rode away, defeat written in every line of his body. After they were gone, Eleanor turned to Nathan. "Texas Rangers," Nathan sighed. "It was a long time ago, 10 years before I met Margaret. I tracked outlaws, brought them to justice. Sometimes I had to kill them. It wasn't a life I'm proud of, but it's who I was. And now I'm just a rancher, a husband, soon to be a father if God wills it." He looked at her seriously. Does it change how you feel about me? Eleanor took his hand. You used your skills to protect our home, to protect our family. No, it doesn't change how I feel. I love you, Nathan Carter, all of you, past and present. Nathan pulled her close, relief evident in every line of his body. 2 weeks later, Sheriff Cooper arrested Walter Thornton for arson based on Charlotte's testimony. Walter would spend the next 10 years in prison. Charlotte, newly freed from her husband's control, became one of Eleanor and Nathan's staunchest supporters in town before she moved back east. Winter slowly gave way to spring. The snow melted, revealing green grass beneath. Flowers bloomed. And in late winter, as the last snows still blanketed the ground, Eleanor discovered she was pregnant. She told Nathan one morning over breakfast, watching his face carefully for his reaction. For a moment, he just stared at her. Then his face crumpled and tears streamed down his cheeks. Are you sure? Dr. Harrison confirmed it yesterday. I'm about 8 weeks along. Nathan knelt beside her chair, placing his hands gently on her still flat stomach. Our baby. A second chance. Not a second chance, Eleanor corrected. Lily Rose is our first child together. This is our second, and there will be more if you want them. I want everything with you, Nathan said. A house full of children, a lifetime of love. Everything. As spring turned to summer, the ranch thrived. With Walter gone, neighboring ranchers helped Nathan rebuild his barn. The community held a barn raising, and in 3 days, Silverstone Ranch had a new barn bigger and better than before. Eleanor's pregnancy progressed smoothly, though Nathan worried constantly. Every small pain, every moment of tiredness sent him into a panic. But Dr. Harrison assured him that everything looked perfect. She's strong, Nate, the doctor said. Young and healthy. Nothing like Margaret's situation. Stop worrying. But Nathan couldn't help worrying. Not until early September, when Eleanor went into labor. It was hard. 14 hours of pain that had Nathan pacing the floor downstairs, praying harder than he'd ever prayed in his life. At one point, Dr. Harrison came down with a grave expression. The baby's breech. I might have to make a choice. Nathan's world stopped. What kind of choice? Between Eleanor and the baby. Save Eleanor, Nathan said immediately. No question, save my wife. But Dr. Harrison went back upstairs determined to save both. And somehow through skill and prayer and Eleanor's sheer stubborn strength, he did. When Nathan heard his son's first cry, he collapsed to his knees sobbing. Dr. Harrison appeared at the top of the stairs, a tiny bundle in his arms. Come meet your son, Nate. Nathan climbed the stairs on shaking legs. Doctor. Harrison placed the baby in his arms, and Nathan looked down at the tiny, perfect face of his son. Benjamin, he whispered. Benjamin Samuel Carter. Go show Eleanor, Dr. Harrison urged. Nathan entered the bedroom to find Eleanor pale but smiling, propped up on pillows. He placed their son in her arms, and they both wept with joy. We did it, Eleanor whispered. Together. Together, Nathan agreed. And as he looked at his wife and newborn son, as he heard Lily Rose calling for him from downstairs, Nathan Carter knew he had everything he'd ever wanted. The first weeks after Benjamin's birth were a blur of sleepless nights and overwhelming joy. Nathan Carter, the man who had lived in silence for 5 years, now found his house filled with the sounds of life. Lily Rose's laughter as she toddled after the barn cats. Benjamin's tiny cries demanding to be fed. Eleanor's soft humming as she rocked their son to sleep. Nathan would wake in the middle of the night, sometimes certain it was all a dream. But then he would feel Eleanor's warmth beside him. Hear Benjamin's breathing from the cradle Nathan had carved with his own hands. And know it was real. All of it was real. He had a family again. One morning about 2 weeks after Benjamin's birth, Nathan woke to find Eleanor already up. He found her in the nursery, sitting in the rocking chair with Benjamin at her breast, watching the sunrise through the window. Couldn't sleep, he asked softly. Eleanor smiled. He was hungry, and I wanted to watch the dawn. I never get tired of Wyoming sunrises. Nathan knelt beside the rocking chair, placing his hand gently on Benjamin's tiny head. The baby's dark hair was soft as silk under his rough palm. I was thinking about Thomas last night, Nathan admitted. My first son, the one I never got to hold. Eleanor's free hand found his. Tell me about him. I never saw him alive. By the time I got home, he was already buried beside Margaret. Pastor Williams said he was small, too small to survive. Born 6 weeks early. Nathan's voice cracked. For 5 years, I tortured myself wondering what he looked like. If he had my eyes or Margaret's. If he cried before he died or just slipped away quietly. Oh, Nathan. But now I have Benjamin and Lily Rose and you. And I realized last night that I can finally let go of the guilt. Thomas is at peace, Margaret is at peace, and I'm allowed to be happy again. It took me so long to believe that. Eleanor leaned down and kissed the top of his head. You deserve happiness, Nathan Carter. You deserve all of this. So do you. After everything Thomas Whitmore put you through after your family abandoned you, you deserve a man who will love you and cherish you. I have that man, Eleanor said simply. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the sun paint the Wyoming sky in shades of gold and pink. Benjamin finished nursing and fell asleep in Eleanor's arms, his tiny fist curled against her chest. He looks like you, Eleanor observed. Same dark hair, same strong jaw, even at 2 weeks old. He has your eyes, though, green as spring grass. Lily Rose has your eyes now, too. She didn't when she was born, but somewhere around 6 months they changed from blue to brown. Like she decided to claim you as her father. Nathan felt his throat tighten. She is my daughter. Blood doesn't matter. She's mine in every way that counts. I know, and she adores you. As if summoned by their conversation, Lily Rose appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleep from her eyes. At 18 months old, she was a tiny replica of Eleanor with the same brown hair and delicate features. But her eyes were Nathan's, dark and serious. Papa, she said, using the name that never failed to make Nathan's heart swell. Baby, wake. Not anymore. Come here, sweetheart. Lily Rose climbed into Nathan's lap, and he held both his daughters close while Eleanor cradled their son. A family. His family. We're blessed, Eleanor whispered. More than I ever thought possible. Nathan agreed. As autumn arrived, painting the cottonwood trees gold and orange, life on Silverstone Ranch settled into a rhythm. Nathan hired 2 ranch hands to help with the increased workload, young men from town who were eager to learn from the legendary Texas Ranger turned rancher. Eleanor managed the household with quiet efficiency, caring for 2 small children while still finding time to help with ranch accounts and meal preparation for the hired hands. She had grown strong over the past year, her arms lean with muscle from chopping wood and hauling water. The fragile girl who had arrived on that train platform was gone, replaced by a woman of steel and determination. One afternoon, while Nathan was out checking fence lines, Eleanor took Lily Rose and Benjamin into town for supplies. The transformation in how people treated her was remarkable. Women who had once whispered behind their hands now greeted her warmly. Mrs. Henderson, the boarding house owner, stopped her on the street. Mrs. Carter, I wanted to say how impressed I've been watching you this past year. The way you've stood by Nathan, worked the ranch when he was injured, faced down your own family. You're an inspiration to us all. Eleanor felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you. That means more than you know. And these beautiful children, Mrs. Henderson cooed over Benjamin in his sling. You're building something wonderful out there at Silverstone. As Eleanor continued down the street, she realized with a start that she was happy. Truly deeply happy in a way she had never been in Philadelphia. This small Wyoming town, which had seemed so foreign and hostile when she first arrived, had become home. She was so lost in thought that she didn't notice the man approaching until he spoke. Eleanor Harper, is that you?" The voice sent ice through her veins. She turned slowly, already knowing who she would see. Thomas Whitmore stood before her, dressed in an expensive suit that looked out of place on Redemption Creek's dusty street. He was as handsome as she remembered, with blonde hair and blue eyes that had once made her heart race. Now they just made her feel cold. "It's Eleanor Carter now," she said quietly. "What are you doing here, Thomas?" "Business. My father is investing in a mining operation near here." His eyes dropped to Lily Rose, who was holding Eleanor's hand, then to Benjamin in his sling. "I heard you had a child. Children, I see." "Yes, Lily Rose is my daughter, and this is my son, Benjamin." Thomas's gaze lingered on Lily Rose. "How old is she?" "That's none of your concern." "Eleanor, I did the math. She's mine, isn't she?" Eleanor's hand tightened on Lily Rose's. "No, she's Nathan Carter's daughter. He's her father in every way that matters. But biologically, she's mine. I have rights." "You have no rights," Eleanor said, her voice shaking with fury. "You abandoned me when I told you I was pregnant. You gave me $50 and told me to disappear." You have no claim to this child. Thomas stepped closer, his expression hardening. I could make trouble for you, Eleanor. A paternity suit. Claim that this Carter fellow stole my child. Try it, a deep voice said from behind Thomas. See what happens. Nathan had appeared without either of them noticing, moving with the silent grace of a predator. He stood a full head taller than Thomas, his scarred face grim and his hand resting casually on his gun. You must be the husband, Thomas said, trying to sound confident and failing. Listen, I don't want trouble. I just want to see my daughter. She's not your daughter, Nathan said, each word deliberate and cold. You're nothing to her. She's the nothing. You're the man who abandoned her mother, the coward who ran away from responsibility. Lily Rose has a father, me, and you're going to walk away now and never come back. Or what? You'll shoot me. Nathan's smile was terrifying. I won't have to. See that man watching us from across the street? That's Sheriff Cooper. He knows all about you, Mr. Whitmore. How you seduced Eleanor with false promises. How you abandoned a pregnant woman. How you threatened to make trouble just now. One word from me and he'll escort you out of town and make sure you never come back. Thomas looked at Eleanor, at Lily Rose, at Benjamin. For a moment, something that might have been regret flickered across his face. I made a mistake, he said quietly. With you. I should have married you when I had the chance. No, Eleanor said firmly. You know what I realized, Nathan? For 2 years, I've been carrying a tiny fear that if Thomas ever saw Lily Rose, if he ever wanted her back, I might lose her. That fear has been like a shadow I couldn't shake. Nathan's arm tightened around her. And now I know it was always an empty fear. He doesn't want to be a father. He wants the idea of it maybe, or he wants to ease his conscience. But he doesn't love her. Not like you do. She's yours, Nathan. She always has been. Nathan's eyes glistened. Damn right she is. And seeing him walk away just now, I felt that shadow lift completely. I'm finally truly free of him, of that whole chapter of my life. She looked directly at Thomas. Goodbye, Thomas. I hope you find happiness someday. But you won't find it with us. Thomas Whitmore walked away, his shoulders slumped in defeat. Eleanor watched him go and felt nothing but relief. Are you all right? Nathan asked, his arm coming around her waist. I'm perfect. For a moment seeing him, I was afraid. Afraid he could take Lily Rose or ruin what we've built. But then I looked at him, really looked at him, and I realized he has no power over me anymore. None at all. Nathan pulled her close, careful not to crush Benjamin between them. You're the strongest woman I know, Eleanor Carter. I learned from the best, she said, kissing him softly. As winter approached once again in late February of 1889, Eleanor discovered she was pregnant for the third time. Nathan's reaction was pure joy, mixed with the familiar undercurrent of fear that would probably never completely leave him. In early March, Dr. Harrison examined Eleanor and made a surprising announcement. Twins, he said. You're carrying twins. Nathan went pale. Twins, is that more dangerous? It can be, but Eleanor is young and healthy. We'll monitor her closely. I don't anticipate problems. The pregnancy was harder than the first two. Eleanor was exhausted all the time, her body working overtime to nourish two growing babies. Nathan took over more of the household duties, learning to cook simple meals and change diapers, with the same competence he showed breaking horses. One evening in late summer, Eleanor woke to find Nathan sitting by the window staring out at the landscape. Can't sleep, she asked. Just thinking about how much life can change in 2 years. 2 years ago, I was alone, bitter, half dead inside. Now look at this. He gestured around the room. 2 children sleeping down the hall, 2 more on the way, a wife I love more than my own life. How did I get so lucky? Eleanor struggled out of bed, her pregnant belly making every movement difficult, and joined him at the window. We saved each other, Nathan. You gave me a home when I had nothing. I gave you a reason to live again. That's not luck. That's grace. Do you ever regret it, agreeing to come with me that night at the train station? You could have gone to the church, gotten help to return east. You could have found a better man than me. There is no better man than you, Eleanor said firmly. And no, I don't regret it a single moment. Even the hard parts. Even the scary parts. Because they all led me here, to this life, to this family. Nathan kissed her soft and sweet. I love you, Eleanor Carter. I love you too. The twins arrived in late November of 1889 as the first snow of winter began to fall. Eleanor's labor was shorter this time, only 8 hours, and the babies arrived healthy and screaming. Two boys, Dr. Harrison announced, placing a squirming infant in each of Nathan's arms. Strong lungs on both of them. Nathan looked down at his son's tears streaming down his weathered face. James and Samuel, he said, after my father and my grandfather. Eleanor, exhausted but radiant, smiled from the bed. Perfect names for perfect boys. The ranch exploded with activity after the twins' arrival. 4 children under the age of 3 kept Eleanor constantly busy. But Nathan was there every step of the way, changing diapers, warming bottles, walking colicky babies at 3 in the morning. The hired hands, initially uncertain about working for a man with so many small children, found themselves charmed by the chaos. They would come in from the fields to find Nathan sitting on the porch with a baby in each arm, while Lily Rose and Benjamin played at his feet, and they would shake their heads in amazement. Boss is the toughest man I know, one of them said. Face-down outlaws, survived gunfights, built this ranch from nothing. But those kids have him wrapped around their little fingers. As it should be, the other replied with a grin. 2 years later, on a crisp September morning in 1891, the Carter family made a trip into Redemption Creek. It was a special day. The town was celebrating its 12th anniversary, and there would be speeches, food, and dancing in the street. As they rode in their wagon, Eleanor looked at her family. Lily Rose, now 4.5 years old, sat beside her, pointing out horses and birds along the way. Benjamin, just turned 3, dozed against Nathan's shoulder. The twins, James and Samuel, almost 2 years old and full of mischief, squirmed in their basket at Eleanor's feet. Can you believe it's been almost 4 years, Eleanor asked Nathan. 4 years since I stepped off that train, terrified and alone. Nathan glanced at her, his dark eyes warm. Best thing that ever happened to me was you stepping off that train. The best thing that happened to me was you being brave enough to approach a desperate stranger and offer her hope. And they pulled up in front of the church, and Pastor Williams hurried over to greet them. The Carters right on time. Nathan, we'd like you to say a few words at the ceremony as one of our most respected ranchers. Nathan looked uncomfortable. I'm not much for public speaking, Pastor. Just a few words about community, about how Redemption Creek has grown. Reluctantly, Nathan agreed. An hour later, he stood on a makeshift stage in the town square, looking out at the assembled crowd. Eleanor stood in front, holding Benjamin, while Lily Rose clung to her skirts and the twins slept in their basket. Nathan cleared his throat. I'm not good at speeches, but I'll say this. 5 years ago, I came to this town a broken man. I'd lost everything that mattered. And for 5 years, I just existed, going through the motions, dead inside. He looked directly at Eleanor. Then one night, I found a young woman at the train station. She'd been abandoned, left with nothing but a baby and 35 cents to her name. I offered her a job, a place to stay, out of some half-formed idea that maybe helping her would ease my own pain. Eleanor felt tears gathering in her eyes. What I didn't know was that she would save me, that she would bring life back to my empty house and purpose back to my hollow days. Eleanor Carter is the strongest, bravest, most remarkable woman I've ever known. And watching her become part of this community, watching you all accept her and our children, has shown me what Redemption Creek really is. A place of second chances. A place where broken people can become whole again. He paused, his voice thick with emotion. So when I think about what this town means, I think about redemption. Real redemption. The kind that comes from people caring about each other. From neighbors helping neighbors. From a community that looks past scandal and judgment to see the human beings underneath. Thank you all for giving my family that gift, for giving us a home. The crowd erupted in applause. Eleanor saw several women dabbing at their eyes with handkerchiefs. Even Sheriff Cooper looked moved. After the ceremony, people came up to shake Nathan's hand and embrace Eleanor. They were no longer outsiders. They were part of the fabric of Redemption Creek woven into its story. That evening, as the sun set over the mountains, Nathan and Eleanor found themselves back at the train station. They had left the children with Mrs. Henderson for an hour, wanting a moment alone. Eleanor stood where she had sat almost 4 years ago, desperate and afraid. The bench was the same, the platform was the same, But everything else had changed. Do you think about that night often? Nathan asked, coming to stand beside her. Every day, Eleanor admitted. I think about how scared I was, how certain I was that my life was over, that I had nothing left but survival. And now, Eleanor turned to face him, taking both his hands in hers. Now I know that night wasn't an ending. It was a beginning, the real beginning of my life. Nathan pulled her close and they stood together in the fading light, two people who had found each other in their darkest moments and built something beautiful from the wreckage of their pasts. Thank you for approaching me that night, Eleanor whispered. Thank you for being brave when I couldn't be. Thank you for saying yes, for trusting a scarred stranger with your life and your daughter's life, for loving me when I didn't think I deserved to be loved. They stood in silence for a long moment, watching the sun paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson. The same sun that had been setting on the night they met, the same mountains standing eternal in the distance. But everything else was different, better, full of hope, in love, in promise. A train whistle sounded in the distance and Eleanor smiled. Someone else's journey is beginning. Or ending, Nathan said, depending on how you look at it. Both, Eleanor decided. Journeys end and begin at the same time, like ours did. They walked back to town, hand in hand, ready to collect their children and return to Silverstone Ranch, to the home they had built together, to the life that had seemed impossible just 4 short years ago. That night, after all 4 children were asleep, Nathan and Eleanor sat on their porch, watching the stars emerge one by one in the darkening sky. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Jacob Hayes hadn't died? Eleanor asked. If he'd met me at that station like he was supposed to. Nathan was quiet for a moment. I try not to, because thinking about a world where I never met you is like thinking about a world without air or light. I can't imagine it. Don't want to imagine it. I used to feel guilty about that, Eleanor admitted, about being grateful that a good man died because his death brought me to you. But I've made my peace with it. Jacob's death was a tragedy, but something good came from that tragedy. Us, our family. That doesn't dishonor his memory. It just means that even from loss, new life can grow. You're wise for someone still so young, Nathan said with a smile. I'm not that young. I'll be 28 next month. Young compared to me. I'm 40 now. Eleanor laughed. Hardly ancient. I feel ancient sometimes, like I've lived 3 lifetimes. Maybe you have. The life before Margaret, the life after you lost her, and now this life, with me, with our children. Nathan pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her hair. This is the only life that matters, the only one I want to remember. They sat in comfortable silence, the night settling around them like a blanket. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote called. An owl hooted from the barn. The sounds of Wyoming at night, familiar and comforting. Nathan, Eleanor said softly, do you still have nightmares about Margaret and Thomas? Not anymore. Not for over a year now. When I wake up, you're here, real and warm and alive. The past has finally let go of me. Good, because you deserve peace, Nathan Carter. You deserve to sleep soundly, knowing you're loved and valued and needed. So do you, after everything you've been through. Eleanor rested her head on his shoulder. I have peace. I have everything I never knew I needed. A home, a family, a man who loves me, not in spite of my past, but including it, understanding it. Your past made you who you are. Strong, resilient, compassionate. I wouldn't change a thing about you. Not even the scandalous parts, Eleanor teased, especially not those. They brought you to me. They fell silent again, both lost in their own thoughts. After a while, Nathan spoke. I've been thinking about expanding the ranch. The Hendersons are selling their property, moving back east to be near their daughter. If we bought it, we'd have almost 1,000 acres. Could run more cattle, build a legacy for our children. Eleanor sat up excited. That's wonderful. Can we afford it? With the money we've saved and a small loan from the bank, yes. I wanted to talk to you about it first. Make sure you are comfortable with the idea of taking on debt. We're partners, Eleanor reminded him. Equal partners. If you think it's the right move for our family, then I trust your judgment. Nathan kissed her forehead. Have I told you today how much I love you? Only 3 times. You're falling behind. Then let me remedy that. I love you, Eleanor Carter. I love your strength and your courage and your fierce protection of our children. I love the way you hum while you cook and the way you laugh at my terrible jokes. I love how you look at me like I'm the most important person in the world, even when I'm covered in dust and horse manure. I love every single thing about you. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. I love you too, Nathan. More than words can say. They went inside together, climbing the stairs to their bedroom. The house was quiet except for the occasional whimper from one of the children and the creak of old wood settling. As they lay in bed, Eleanor's head on Nathan's chest, she thought about the journey that had brought them here. From desperate strangers to devoted partners, from broken individuals to a whole healthy family. Nathan, she whispered, when you think about the future, what do you see? Nathan was quiet for a moment, considering. I see Lily Rose starting school next year, learning to read and write. I see Benjamin learning to ride, helping me with the ranch. I see the twins growing up, probably getting into all kinds of mischief together. I see more children, if God blesses us. I see us growing old together, watching our grandchildren play in the yard where our children play now. That sounds perfect. What do you see? Eleanor smiled in the darkness. The same thing, all of it. A lifetime of mornings waking up beside you. A lifetime of watching our children grow. A lifetime of building something beautiful together. Then that's what we'll have, Nathan said with certainty. I promise you that, Eleanor. A lifetime of love and family and home. I know you always keep your promises. They fell asleep tangled together, secure in each other and in the life they had built. Outside, the Wyoming wind whispered through the cottonwoods, and somewhere in the distance, a train whistle blew, carrying new travelers to new destinies. But for Nathan and Eleanor Carter, their journey had already brought them home, to Silverstone Ranch, to each other, to a love that had been forged in desperation and tempered in adversity, emerging stronger and truer than either had thought possible. Two broken people had found each other on a train platform in the fading light of a September evening. And from that chance meeting, from that moment of courage and kindness, an entire world had been born. A world of laughter and tears of struggle and triumph of ordinary moments made extraordinary by love. A world worth fighting for, worth living for, worth everything. And as the stars wheeled overhead and the night deepened around Silverstone Ranch, the Carter family slept peacefully safe in the knowledge that they belonged to each other and to this land. They had found their redemption. They had found their home. They had found each other. And that in the end was all that mattered. The cowboy and his mail-order bride, the broken rancher and the desperate young mother. Two souls who had saved each other when salvation seemed impossible. Their story was complete. Their journey was done. Their love would endure. Forever and always in this wild Wyoming territory they called home.